the roof raise. So what I'm doing now is the last piece, and every skin needs to come off. I took off the skins that wrap around the handicap door on both sides, above. Pretty much any interior skin that's not welded in should come off, depending on what you're doing. So I'm doing an under the window raise, so it'll go under all of the windows. So it'll come up the last hat channel and meet with the top cap of the rear and the top cap of the front. Now the rear, because of how we're doing it, we're not lifting any of the doors. So the rear will come all the way past the handicap door. We're also deleting the last two windows because that will be where our headboard is for our bed. So I'll have to bring that top cap also all the way back to cover those windows, because that portion will get sheet metal over it, and I have to get the sheet metal under the rain guard to cover those windows properly. So pretty much from the back two windows all the way around the back, all the way past the handicap door. And the same thing for the front. Now, see this front door, I've got to separate this area, all the rivets along the top, all the way to above the driver's door. This little piece right here is welded from the door frame into this hat channel, and as you can tell down here, this is a cap on the actual hat channel behind it. So I gotta break all those spot welds and then get that cap piece off so that I can pretty much choose where I want to cut that hat channel for the raise. So for the front hat channel cap that's over there by the front door, it is tack welded on the fairly impossible side to get to unless you remove the entire door frame. This isn't something I was looking forward to doing. So instead, what I'm going to do is cut it right where that weld is, because I can see the metal bending as you've seen in the time lapse. It's bent like halfway out. So I'm going to cut it at that ripple and get better access to that weld, and then I can peel it back again, and there's one more stitch weld on the very bottom of where that cap almost hits the bus floor. So if I can do that, break that weld, bend it again, cut it again, and then I'll have that bottom weld access point. Hopefully we can get this thing out in a relatively good time. Getting that hat channel off was a little more challenging than I thought, and it's a great time to talk about tools for the job. So I have a sawzall with a metal blade, multi-tool with a metal blade, angle grinder with a metal blade, air chisel with a sharpened blade. I don't recommend it. It can do the job. If you just buy a brand new chisel tip, it will do it, but mine was a little old and needed a little sharpening. All right, so this hat channel, the cap has been removed. Now when we check out this area, you can see we have, this is welded in, this is welded in on both sides, and then we have a nice long weld starting here all the way to the top. And then these, see these backside, those are stitch welds that are attached to this hat channel to this piece. So in theory, if we want to cut it down here, the hat channel, this whole top of the door mechanism will have to stay put. So my plan for that is to cut it down there, obviously take all the rivets and screws out of the back side on the outside of the bus, and then cut all these stitch welds and this stitch weld, and then cut all the remaining welds, because it's also welded into this side piece of the door frame under here. So if I can remove this weld, these two welds, this baby weld, and then these stitch welds up here, then it'll allow the whole skin of the bus to go up with it and this will stay down with the door. We're not moving the doors at all. Okay, so now we are doing the rivet drill out. These are the drill bits that Skoolie.com provided, 10 of them with the roof raise kit. They're 17/64, which is a little bit bigger than the rivet itself. So what I've done to prevent this bit from walking off of every single rivet is I've took my drill in a 1/8 inch drill bit and just did some pilot holes in all of the rivet, just a little bit, so that when you go to hit it again with this bigger drill bit, it doesn't walk off the rivet. You kind of get into a straight line and get an even drill through the rivet. So that's what I've done, and we're gonna get to getting. So as you can see, there is the baby pilot holes that I've drilled, and now I'll come back in every single one of these pilot holes with the bigger drill bit that Skoolie.com provided and get them out nice and easy. So this is the beginning of day 2 of the roof raise, and currently I am removing rivets. See the opening holes? I thought I'd do a few to try to find my best method. For me, what's working the best, and this doesn't necessarily apply to everybody, but what I'm doing is I'm taking a very small bit and an extension. The extension isn't needed always, just like right under this hat channel I needed it because it's kind of tight. But I usually do not use the extension. What I've been doing is going on the back of the rivets, and you see how there's kind of a hole. They're all a little bit weird. Some of them are off, but I drill a pilot hole. Then I use the drill bits that Skoolie.com gave me, these big honkin' boys. That's one thing I wanted to mention about these back sides. See the small circle in the middle? That is, even though some of them don't look centered, that is the middle of the rivet. I did a couple in the center of the entirety of the circle, and it comes out not in the center of the rivet and sometimes leaves pieces behind. So with this method, I drill through until I break this completely free of this first piece of metal. And then you can start to see the actual circle of the rivet itself. And then, once that is exposed, I have an air chisel that goes up to 95 PSI, but it doesn't want to bust the rivets loose. So what I've been doing is putting it in there after I'm done, like that, holding it with my hand, and if you're comfortable doing this, hitting it with a hammer. For some reason, my hammer strike seems to have a little more force than the air chisel, and it's popping them right out in 2 or 3 hits. Like I said, I drilled some before I recorded. These all came out pretty much on the outside going in, and it proved to be pretty difficult, and that's why I tried a different method. After, see how these look all nice and uniform compared to the other ones back there? After you air chisel knock it out, because of the rivets that Skoolie.com provides, you do have to go like this hole right here. If you can see, some of the metal is not the same size as the rest of the metal. So once I'm done doing this and punching all these holes through, they have to come from the outside to the inside with the drill bit that Skoolie.com provides to make the hole the same size as that drill bit. And I'll show you why. This big old honkin' boy, these are probably the biggest rivets I've ever seen in my life. They're massive. So this is a hole right here that was not re-drilled. And if you can tell, look, I'm trying to push it in. I can't get it in. Can't get it in because it's not big enough. These rivets are made to be fit into the hole that Skoolie.com's drill bit provides. See, I'll go into one of these. These are all pre-drilled. Gotta get through the sheet metal. Bam. Money. Perfect almost. mean, it helps, but it's weird. I think it's more weird because I was sitting like this. Yeah. So I think the next one could be easier.
Just an awkward angle.
So that one's cut.
Yep. Okay, so these are the roof jack assemblies that Skoolie.com provides. Typically, you would put these in above your cuts. So you have made a cut, so you put it here, and then the other one below, and then the threaded rod goes in between these holes. But instead of the tack-on weld method, because I'm not a welder and I only want to pay for a welder for one day to do all the hat channels, I've decided to do a bolt-on method. I've seen other people do it with similar designs, and it seems to work just fine. So we're using 1/2-inch, 3-inch bolts and nuts. And if you come over here, you can see how I've already attached one. Probably not necessary to switch the way that the bolt goes through, but I'm doing it just so one goes through one way, one goes through the other way. Double the strength, but then just bolt them on. Okay, so this is the fully installed roof jack assembly. What will happen is, the reason that I have so much rod here instead of on the bottom is because this one will not move and this rod will not move. So as this lifts up, it'll get 10 inches taller because that's how much roof raise of wood doing. And so this will be up here, and then the rod will be more evenly distributed. That's what I mean.
All right, so Miles just got done bolting and installing the jacks on 4 of the hat channels, the 4 that he also cut. And now he's about to start cutting all of the other hat channels. The reason he did these 4, he did this one, that one, the very back one over there, and this side one near the handicap door. And the reason he did that was so that when he does start cutting these other hat channels, they don't go sideways and could potentially
pinch the
saw blade. So it's just a safer way to do all 4 corners, and now he's gonna get cutting on all of these other hat channels.
Okay. So I've cut almost all the channels in a staggered design, which means that there's not a clean line through all of the cuts of the hat channels because it might create a weak point depending on the welds. So I'm gonna eliminate that by each hat channel will be, one will be here, one will be lower, one will be higher. They're all over the place so that it doesn't create a clean break point. But because of these rivets, I don't want to take out more than I need to. I still have to take out these bottom ones, but even with those out, my saw, when I cut this line, will bump into these, so it's not going to be a clean cut. So what I did is I'm using the structural rail on the other side of the bus, that white bottom piece of the bus. I found a perfect piece like this. I'm going to attach it right onto the top of that lip, and it'll cut right into that line. So I'm going to use this as pretty much a saw guide.
Want me to try again?
Yeah, check it. One more. Okay, that's it. One more pump. Right there. All right.
Spinners.
All right, now we're gonna do.
It's not a
We're gonna do a crank because it doesn't move that much. It only moves like an 1/8 inch.
Yeah.
We're gonna do crank when after 3, 2, 1. It's gonna be 3, 2, 1, 2, and I'll count it out.
Okay.
Ready?
Yep.
So we're going down, right?
Yep.
3, 2, 1, down, up, down, up. Something popped.
Yep.
It looks like I gotta do the same thing up here. Leave yours. Let me crank until.
This
how's
side's
how's
not
your
moving.
jack look?
This side's not moving at all. Oh, that scared the fuck out of me.
What do you mean?
It's just not moving.
Yeah, that one's hasn't moved. I've
Hasn't
moved
gone
mine
up
a
at
good
all.
bit.
So
Is there a screw in there?
that means something's stuck or not cut.
It's all good. It's all good. It's all good.
That scared me. So this side right here just hasn't been moving up the same way as everything else. Seems like it's stuck on something. And Miles just realized that it could potentially be this antenna.
You gotta hammer it through.
Don't kill me now.
Oh, that's this right there. Han.
One more.
There.
Yeah.
Yeah, there it goes.
Even give it another 2 on your end.
2?
Because look how much more I have than you.
No, oh my god. Okay.
Right. Up,
Up,
down,
down.
up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up.
All right. We just finished our first day of lifting. Miles is just tightening up the last of the back. We're losing daylight, so
Making them all the same height.
yep. It's 5
Need the light over here too.
5 inches and 3/8. We're halfway there. And it's a little sketch,
Super sketch.
but it looks good.
Okay, cool. I'll go, I was gonna go 4 holes long. Obviously, I'm not gonna go all the way through. I'm gonna try to get like 25 to 50% through the cut, but I'm gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4 holes. Cool.
As you can see, we are now working on the rear preformed corners from Skoolie.com. So what I've done is it helps to have, I would say, probably at least 4 clamps, because you can clamp it in multiple places, but they are a little tricky to get bent into the right place. So I've clamped it into place. I've already drilled the bottom holes. Now I'm going to put another clamp up here, then I'll mark the top holes, and then I'll take it down, drill those holes, put rivets in the bottom. You want to start in the middle and work your way to the outside. So theoretically you could put some here, then work your way to the outside of the panel. That's what was described to me as the best way to keep them straight. All right, so here we are on the rivet phase. I've put a bead of the lap sealant provided by Skoolie.com under. I don't care if there's a bunch of, like, if you show them the other side, how there's a bunch sticking out, because I can clean that up. I'd rather make sure that I have a really good seal. So what I've been doing is putting some on the lap sealant, and then just to ensure extra sealability, I put some on the rivet itself, and then I'll put it in the hole and rivet it in place, and that will, I mean, I just think it's a good idea. So now we're at the portion on where a window comes back in. We're using the closed rivets because of how shallow the depthness is. The original rivets that we use in other portions stick too much into the body, so the window couldn't completely sit properly. So now this has closed rivets, super shallow, and we'll use the air chisel with the rivet install kit that Skoolie.com provided. This goes right on the end of the rivet, and the steel buck bar goes against the back of it, and it hits like, imagine, you know, like a bullet hitting a steel plate. So it kind of just like mushrooms on the back end, and that's what brings it all together.
Put it on it.
Very straight.